Today I am doing a little something different. I'm going to tell you all a story. So join me as we go back in time. For those who don't know, I'm Zoe and Harley is sleeping, which I said previously and then it jinxed it and she woke up. So let's just kind of put it out there that she's sleeping for now and hopefully carries on sleeping, but we can't be sure. So and let's just kick things off. I want to tell you all about how I became a gamer and why it's important and why I want Harley to be a gamer and all of that. So, I became a gamer when I was a kid, and I always tell the story like I became a gamer and the rest is history. But rather than just kind of glossing over what happened, I thought I would share a little bit more about kind of the process of it and why it's important and how it changed who I have been through my whole rest of my life. So, I have an older brother. He's 4 years older than me, and he was initially the gamer. He pestered our parents. He played on the Atari and original Nintendo. So he played on the Atari and the original Nintendo and loved it. Obviously, I mean it was revolutionary. Okay, so my brother had, kind of pestered our parents until they gave in and saw the value in getting us an original Nintendo. And yes, I realize that makes me sound incredibly old, and it probably is because I am incredibly old. But my first console was the original NES, and we had Mario and Tetris, and my mom loved City Connection, which is like a game no one has ever heard of or played, but she loved it. And that was it. I mean, it was obviously very rudimentary in that era, and we ended up getting Zelda, and I was not allowed to play much. Like, if my brother wasn't around, I could play, but for the most part, he was very possessive, and like, my mom would be like, "You have to share," and he would be like, "Well," and like kind of grumble, and then eventually I would get to play, but I was 4 years younger, so I mean, I was very, very, very young and did not actually have the the manual dexterity at that age to do anything meaningful in my gaming pursuits. Then my brother got Final Fantasy, and that was a game changer. So Final Fantasy changed everything because it was so intense and it was such this deep, long game. And he was playing and I was watching and I loved the music and I thought everything was really cool and the combat was really interesting and the world. So I loved Final Fantasy, absolutely adored it. And then um, I remember we were playing it and we did like our first dungeon. Well, he got into the first dungeon, and at that age, I was I was probably 6, 7. No, I must have been a little bit older, 7 or 8 maybe. And hi Craig, I'm still very early on. Don't worry. So it was Final Fantasy One on the NES, and my brother was playing, and he got into the first dungeon, and he got lost and didn't know what was happening. And I was like, I'll draw a map. And by the time we finished playing Final Fantasy, I had maps of every dungeon and like little annotations of like which monsters popped up in which areas, and that was kind of the beginning. Now that would be like a wiki walkthrough, but back then there was no wiki walkthrough, and all you had was if you got really stuck, you could phone the 900 number for Nintendo in the States. It was so expensive, so my mom had to deal with us that we could phone, but if it went over, I think $10, we had to pay the full amount. So you'd kind of phone and be like, pick up, pick up, pick up. This is the question. Answer quickly. Okay, cool, done. Thank you. Bye. Um, so very different time than now, where you can just kind of log on to every single guide website and FAQ site and find all the secrets and the answers. So I made maps and I loved the game, absolutely adored Final Fantasy. And then we just kind of carried on and we got Final Fantasy 2 and 3, and my brother was still the main one to play, but I was the navigator. So, we used to say he was the brawn and I was the brain. And like, I remember there was one game and he finally got a ship of some description, and then he was like, I don't know where to go. And I was like, oh, of course, you just go to that cave that we've been looking at. And he's like, I don't remember a cave. And I was always the one who kind of knew where we were going and would navigate us and make sure we got through the actual game. And then somehow, obviously he kind of grew up and wanted to spend his time doing other things, and so I started playing the games more. And I think, like I remember playing Secret of Evermore and Secret of Mana on Super Nintendo, and we had played other games and he had played other games, but that was really when I started being the one who went through most of the story, and then if he was around, he would do couch co-op or something with me, and otherwise he was doing his own thing and I was playing the games themselves. And then and what was cool with Secret of Mana was I could play as two of the characters, and he could actually literally have the tank character, and I could have the like smart characters. So yeah, it was a pretty cool setup that we had, and I absolutely loved playing these RPGs. And in those days, I'm sure there were magazines you could buy. I mean, there are magazines that have been around forever, but I wasn't subscribed to any sort of magazines or anything like that. There was a really cool store, this tiny hole in the wall, independent game store in New York on 6th Avenue. For those who know New York, 6th Avenue. In the village, and they had this like great selection in this tiny, like I think the shop was probably as big as this room, like it was tiny. And I would go in, and I was a little girl. I mean, like by that point I'm maybe like 8, 9, 10, really really just like adamant that I had to play games and I wanted new games. And when my mom wanted to treat me to something, or when like it was time for some sort of cool present, she would say, let's go to the game store and you can pick what you want. And so I would go, and I remember I used to talk to these, much older, generally bearded, quirky men, someone who probably looks a lot like my husband now, to be honest. And I would say to them, like, I want a game, but it has to be an RPG, and I want to have at least 100 hours of game time. And so that's how I ended up playing so many JRPGs as a kid. And I loved them. So, I mean, it wasn't an issue. They had good taste in terms of finding games for me. But it was incredible because they could just pick things off the shelf for me, and we would buy them, and every time it was a success. Like every single recommendation was so spot on. And it was a different era, I suppose, but like that's also when I had real love for Squaresoft. I became very brand loyal for Squaresoft, now Square Enix. Because back in those days, I basically had the opinion that if it said Squaresoft on the box, I was gonna like the game. And it did. Like, that's the funny thing is, like, it did work out that way, thankfully. But like, I've gone back through some of my old games sometimes and been like, I was such a Squaresoft fangirl as a kid because, I would only really be getting games, a few times a year. Probably more often. I mean, probably more than that. But like, the games that were just bought for me that weren't also bought for my brother or whatever. Like, it was a few times a year that I would get new games, and they had to last. Like, it had to be the type of game that I could sit and play for hundreds of hours and, not get sick of, and I could replay and find something new and find something interesting about it. So that was the value in playing all these JRPGs and RPGs in general. And it's just been so cool now, like looking back and, in my current profession, people are like, oh, did you ever play this? Did you ever play that? And I'm like, yeah, on the original console, haha, thanks. And obviously I played other games, like I played the likes of Mortal Kombat, and I played, lots and lots of Mortal Kombat. I remember when we figured out all the secrets, like uppercut the guy when you're on the bridge, and then he would fall down and land on spikes, and that was like, oh, I don't know if this is safe for kids, and, all of this. But it's just been really interesting, because to me, I find gaming has kind of been the central point, and all my other interests have stemmed from that. So like I was really into reading. I was a bookworm forever. And back in those days you had to read most of the text of games, but also a lot of the time they would refer back to mythology, or they would reference things from history, and I actually then would become interested and be like, well, let me go read about Greek mythology, let me go read about Norse mythology, let me go find out what was happening in history in the Roman era. I got into Civilization when I played on PC, and it was like, these rulers actually existed. Let me go find out more about them. And then the music was quite cool. And at that point, I was playing piano, and it was like, ooh, this music is really interesting. Where does it come from? Oh, it's by Debussy. Well, I want to play Debussy. And so, all these different interests that I had over the years, I think gaming kind of was the point that I could do everything. But it still sparked so many other areas of interest. But I still always just thought of it as a hobby, and it's been such a joy as an adult to be able to do this for work and be in an industry that actually acknowledges gaming. So yeah, so that was up until Super Nintendo. Yeah, and then I actually didn't end up getting a Nintendo 64. I don't know why. I don't think there was something. I think I had so many games on Super Nintendo that I was still very busy and very happily playing things. And it was a different time. I'm going to keep saying that a lot, I think, this evening. It was a different time back then because they supported that console forever. Like, I literally never had to get a Nintendo 64. I think I also didn't like the controller. That controller was very weird. It was like it was designed by someone who doesn't have hands or something. I don't know. It was very odd to me. And so I made the jump straight from Super Nintendo to the first PlayStation, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, it was like seeing in HD or something. It was phenomenal, and all of a sudden I had discs, and I had to get memory cards. Made gaming so much more complicated. Like, let's not joke, guys. Like, the jump from Super Nintendo, where it was literally have a cartridge, and if it doesn't play, you blow in it and it works, and well, your save data's there, and go for it, to then needing, please insert disk 73 and you'll need a bigger memory card because you're out of space in your memory card. Those were some hard times, everyone. Like, let's acknowledge that. And I loved it. It was, I'm so glad. It blew my mind. Exactly. I mean, it was the graphics, and like now we see graphics and we're like, uncanny valley. Like, we're also jaded, but at that time I remember seeing like my first real proper cutscene, and I was just taken aback. It was like, how is this even possible? Like, how I'm watching a movie and then now I'm playing the movie, and I just thought it was incredible graphics. Meanwhile, I was also playing on PC. So my mom always had a Mac and my dad always had a PC. So I think I played back on his early PC. I had like a DOS game of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and it would literally like pop up like, he went to the bank and he bought rupees, and then I was like, I was a child, what did I know? And so I literally we had like an almanac back in those days. I'm really sounding very old now, but we had an almanac, and I would pull the almanac down and like look up which country had rupees, and then I'd click the next screen and be like, ooh, he must be in whatever country. Or I would guess if I was really lazy and didn't want to get the almanac, and then I would fail the game every time. Like, I was really bad at Carmen Sandiego because I didn't know, until eventually I learned all the currencies and world capitals and languages, and stuff like that. That's actually quite cool. And on my mom's computer we had a game called Swamp Gas, where like you were an alien and you would travel around Europe and the States, and then you had to know like the different countries where they were geographically, and state capitals and country capitals and all of that, and then you would take over the world as an alien, of course. I think that was the plot of the game. It was many years ago. I don't know. I just remember being like an alien in a spaceship, and then you would get a bonus round where you could assemble robots, because gaming was very different then. And my mom loved the mini game where you could assemble robots. Like, that was her favorite. So what I used to do is load up like, you could play, I think, 6-player Swamp Gas. So I would load up 6 different games, beat all of them. I mean, I still, to this day, know my European geography, although it was also old geography, so it's still like Czechoslovakia. But anyway, I knew my European geography, and I know where all the states are in America because of this game. And then she would get to assemble robots for many times. I hope so too, Craig. It was such a different kind of life, and I think that's the whole thing that's so different now. Is like, now games feel educational, or they feel like they're trying to be funny or trying to appeal to kids or whatever. And then I think they took kids a lot more seriously. Like, they were cool with being like, this game is really, really difficult, and you'll probably die a lot. Like, it was a very different time. And yay, Craig, I'm so glad you're starting them off on NES. And back in those days, like, Zelda kicked my ass. Like, I think I spent weeks trying to just figure out the best order of, like, okay, I'll go up and then left, and then there's like a thing here, but don't let this guy kill you. Then you have to go back around and try and get a bow. And I mean, like, I had maps upon maps upon maps and so many drawings. And like, when we cleared out our old stuff a few weeks back, or not weeks back, a while back, my mom found like all these old maps and all these old like stuff in amongst the games and everything, and it's like, it was, now we don't do that. We don't make maps. I haven't made a map for a game in ages. I don't even write down if it's like, keep note of this code. I'm like, oh, I'm sure the game will remember for me. I don't need to pay attention. Like, I used to have notebooks with like, this is my password, and I made it to this level, and this is the password I need to put in to get back to this level when I play it again. And now now it's like autosave. Sorry, you died. Don't worry, you can respawn right where you were. And no, we have become jaded. Like, I mean, I think about games that are panned, and I'm sometimes the person panning. Like, sometimes I'm like, this game really isn't that great, and it's like, it's not bad. It's just not as amazing as sort of the new benchmarks are set to. Like, we now expect every game to offer us an immersive, amazing world and a story and characters and development, and the aesthetic must be impressive and the combat must be amazing. And it's like, back then we were just happy if it didn't crash and break everything, and if we could actually complete it sometimes, maybe, and it was a challenge, and you never knew if the game was actually broken or if you were just not skilled enough. So you'd get together with friends and be like, I can get past this level, I can get past that level, and it all kind of coalesced together. But going back to sort of how gaming shaped me, I think about like the stories that have stuck with me and the characters that have stuck with me over the years, and just feeling like I was part of something bigger. Like, I understood stories that were, yes, exactly, writing out those codes and puzzles, exactly. But I felt like I was part of something, and it's been something that's continued, like, throughout. It was especially important to me throughout my teen years. So, we all suffer in our teen years. Like, let's not even joke. No one enjoys being a teenager. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just what I tell myself. But I don't think most people enjoy being a teenager, because you're trying to figure out who you are and where you fit in, and you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, and all that crap. And I think gaming really helped me in that sense, because I belonged to a community of gamers, and I didn't even know there was a community. But it would be the type of thing where I'd be chatting to people, and they'd be like, oh, well, this is like a Tetris thing, and I'd be like, yeah, but it doesn't all disappear, or whatever, make sort of some sort of comment in reference to, like, yeah, you can pack like Tetris, but better not have it all vanish once you get it to fit right. Or someone would mention a character from a game, and I would be able to respond. I could do really, really bad Scorpio come over here, like, harpoon impressions, and somehow that made me a really cool girl, which, looking back, I don't know what kind of guys I was hanging out with. I was also a teenager, so in a group of very uncool people, I was one of them, and it worked out really well. And it's something that's continued to be really cool for me, is that gaming is the ultimate escape. When I moved overseas, so by the time I was in high school, I had my PlayStation, and when I was living in Holland was when they released the PlayStation 2. And so, because my parents were going through a divorce and, all of the joys that come with that, my mom decided that the best thing was bribery, and so her decision was to have the better game console at her house. So she went on to eBay, because at that point everything was sold out. It was, wonderful times. And she got a PS2 for me. So at her house, there was the PlayStation 2, and at my father's house was the PS1. So obviously, I would want to be at the PS2 house so that I could play all the latest games and all of that. And I can't even tell you how many hours I put into SSX Tricky. Like, who plays snowboarding game? Like, I didn't, I was not a Tony Hawk girl. I was a snowboarding SSX Tricky girl, and I loved it. Like, I think I knew every track backwards and forwards, and I adored that game. Um, and it was just something that I could do that didn't involve being asked, like, how was your day? Or, you know, how are you feeling? Oh, the parents are getting divorced, blah blah blah. It was like, yeah, okay. Meanwhile, I've got a new Final Fantasy to play, so gonna do that. Um, and it's just something that continued on for my whole life. I always had games to escape into, and it always made me a different kind of girl when I was, interacting in groups. Like, I think that the stories of gaming are, let's be honest, like every plot seems to follow the same thing, right? There's the establishment, then you find out the establishment is corrupt and evil, and then you must join the rebellion and fight against the evil, like, establishment, because apparently every gamer wants to be a rebel. But it just made it that when I felt like an outsider as a teenager and as a kid and all of that, it wasn't like, oh, I'm an outsider, the evil empire will never accept me. It was like, yeah, I'm an outsider, that's kind of cool, like, when are we going to overthrow the normal people? Like, I kind of accepted my differences a lot earlier on, I think, in part because of gaming. And also because I had a hobby that I could do with or without friends, so I wasn't so dependent. I mean, obviously I was a social creature. I still am very social, but, if I didn't have friends, or if, things were awkward or whatever, like, I was fine to lose myself in gaming. And also if, like, I went to someone's house and, like, at that age, it's always so awkward, like, what are we gonna do? Do you want to watch a movie? Do you want to do this? Well, gaming was something that I could just do. So go to someone's house and it was like, oh, we have this old Nintendo console still lying around. I'd be like, oh, you have this game, I loved that one, and I could jump in and play. And it made me always feel like there was something I could do wherever I went, and something I could talk to people about. And it served me so well during those years, and when everything is so awkward and it's like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Gaming, it works for me. Um, and I just always continued playing on every platform I could. Like, I always had, PC games and console games and eventually handheld games. And, obviously once I was an adult, I could get all the things all the time and just spoil myself rotten. And that was the priority. I mean, I always joke, like, Dean and I don't buy clothes, we don't buy shoes, we don't, buy fancy stuff for our house. We buy the new TV and the new console, and we need PC upgrades so that we can play the latest games. And, I'm just always so grateful that his birthday generally falls around Dark Souls / Bloodborne release time, because I can buy him a collector's edition and he's happy. So, things change when you're an adult and you can actually just buy those things. But, I was really lucky that throughout the years I played on all consoles, on all platforms, and I really got exposed to so many different types of games and so many different types of communities of gamers as well. Like, I would hang out with the fighting game people, and I would talk about storylines with the RPG people, and, if someone mentioned comic book characters, even though I had never read comic books, I knew all the characters because they made games of everybody. And it just made such a difference to always have this frame of reference that I could draw back to. And like I said, it led to so many other interests and so many other skills. So I already talked about the mapping capability. I was drawing out maps of dungeons and all of that. And then there's also the puzzles. I mean, so many puzzles that I solved, and lateral thinking and all of that. And then, I think it also helped with manual dexterity. I think that it helped with reasoning skills. They say it helps with decision making. I do think I'm a pretty quick decision maker. I mean, the list just goes on and on. And so it's one of those things, there's a whole debate about screen time and, like, oh, kids shouldn't be allowed such and such amount of time with a screen on their face. And I do agree to a certain extent. Like, I do still think that passive viewing of a screen is, I mean, I feel myself, like, I just kind of get lazy and lie on the couch and, binge watch a series, and I love it, but it's not intellectually stimulating unless you're watching something really, really good. Really good TV counts. Well, this is just so she is interested in playing. Well, she's interested in controllers. She loves controllers. She gets very upset if we're playing and she isn't. So like I'll hold the controller and then she tries to move my thumbs like around and stuff and she pushes buttons. She also figured out that if she pushes the button on the controller, the console starts up. And that's quite an exciting thing for her. So she'll push the button and wait for the sound and all of that. And she's also figured out that if she pushes the eject button on the PS4 while mommy is playing, she always gets a reaction. So that's one of her favorite games at the moment. But exactly. But it is one of those things where I do want her to play games. I'm actually having a bit of a debate with myself. Like, to me, as long as it's gaming rather than TV, I don't mind how much she plays. So she's still quite young, so I don't think, she necessarily will want to play video games for a bit yet. I think it's more like that's why I think the Toys to Life genre was so clever. Was like she's quite interested in the actual toys, and that's something that she can play with. And then once she's older, realize like, oh, that actually interacts with the game. But for now, there isn't really much that I think is age appropriate just yet. But I do want her to play games, and I'm kind of debating, like, do I start her on something like Mario? Do I put her, back on the NES so that she can, I can imagine Craig is not so amused when that happens. I'm also not amused, but I kind of take it in my stride, but it is really, really distressing. So it is that thing of like, okay, I read an article a while back about a guy who actually started his kid on retro games and like set aside like 2 to 3 years in gaming history per 6 months to a year for his kid to play. So it was like, okay, cool, you'll start with, Tetris and Space Invaders and stuff like that, and then you'll move on to Mario, and then you'll move on to whatever early like Legend Zeldas, and kind of marched him through, and then recently put him on some more modern games, and I think beat like Spelunky in 20 minutes or something, because we're all just noobs now compared to the way we used to game as kids. So if you actually teach your kids to play those games first, by the time they get to modern games, even really difficult, Dark Soulsy, complicated, difficult games, they'll be like, oh, this is just like whatever, and boop, 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 done. So, I mean, on the one hand, I kind of want to start her on the retro games so that she can appreciate the games now. On the other hand, there are some really cool titles that are out now that are geared towards kids, and it'll be tough for me to be like, do I really want to watch her play Mario? Although Mario's always cool, but do I really want to sit with her and help her play all these games? And I mean, I can't beat Mega Man now. Like, I tried, so I got that NES Mini thing. I suck so bad at the games I used to own. Like, I used to be able to be like, oh, Mega Man, done. Okay, cool, that was fun. Nice way to spend the afternoon replaying this game that I'm so good at. And now I loaded that up and I was like, jump, oh, dead, okay. Shoot, dead, okay. Let's try a different game I was really good at. And like, I just, the games are so different now and what we're used to. I mean, I had it when I replayed Mass Effect. It's so, like, Mass Effect 1, there's no autosave. Like, I died and I was like, what? I forgot to save? No. Yeah, Overcooked looks really cool. I think Stardew Valley would also be really fun for her to play when she's older. Like, I think that's a really, like, chilled game that, she can go and do the fighting stuff that's in the caves, or she can be planting fields, or she can be fishing, and, there's a variety of mini games that she can get into, and it's so addictive. So I really wouldn't mind if she, like, built her ultimate Stardew Valley farm one day, and then she'll have a better farm than I do. And then she'll ask me what it means that her characters are getting married and have babies, and that's when I'll have to have the where do babies come from conversation. Or maybe she'll play Sims. I mean, I don't know, like, I know Sims is so cliched as being like a girl game, and I hate that cliche, but I used to play, like, original Sims, so not even Sims 2 when they got all those expansion packs and it was, a much better game. I played original Sims for so many hours of my life, like so many hours. And I remember I built a house and it was too big and too expensive, so I had no money left, so I couldn't build the full bathroom, so they didn't have showers. So I would wake my Sims up at 4 in the morning to start washing their hands so that the hygiene bar would fill up. Like, who does that? But that's my Sims experience. And like everyone I talk to, like The Sims does not teach you about real life. Like it totally does not teach you about real life, but it's so fun and so addictive. And you want to build the perfect house, and you want to get, your random characters to get a new job. Although I still don't understand why they need to have more friends to be promoted, because I know so many people in high-ranking jobs who have no friends. So, and why don't the marriages count as friends? Because, like, how many people do I know where, like, the one person in the couple's really social and they have, like, the circle of friends, and then they organize the play dates for the husband? Like, honey, we're having a braai. I've organized with all your friends. And he's like, I have friends? Like, yeah. And then, that's kind of, that's real life. If The Sims were real, that's how it would work. You could marry into someone with a great friendship pool. Instead, in The Sims, people marry into someone who has a really nice house, and then they kill off the spouse in the swimming pool by removing the ladder, and no one minds. Like, everyone is just like, oh, that was really sad. Oh, well. And then they, like, can leave babies outside. Like, I don't know, The Sims is so weird. And there's, like, whole Reddit threads of people who do horrendous things in The Sims. Like, that is some dark stuff. That's, like, some Criminal Minds level stuff. People have, like, basements where someone is painting all the time, and then they get better and better at painting, obviously. And then that's what's funding, like, the people's upstairs lifestyle. That's what Darren does, who I work with. Darren has a painting troll in every house in his Sims lifestyle, and they fund probably the completed bathrooms that I didn't have money to build in The Sims. But this is just it, is like we all have so many stories to tell about like weird gaming stuff we get up to, and that's why I think it shapes us as people so much. Is like it means that I can go into a social situation where I don't know anyone and be like, oh yeah, no, I'm a video game journalist, and people are like, that's so cool, how'd you get into it, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, I've been a gamer forever, and they're like, oh, that's amazing, blah blah blah, and like the fact that I'm a woman and a gamer always gets people to be like, really? That's so uncommon. And I'm like, actually, it's really common, but most women don't really want to have this conversation, so they'll just carry on as is and not get into like, oh yeah, I also play games or whatever. But it means that I can go anywhere in the world and find people to talk to about gaming. And obviously there's always going to be the people like, oh, you're not a real gamer, and then usually by the time I tell them, I've been gaming since original NES, they shut up. Like, I don't even have to go into the like, oh no, I've played this game and that game. Like, usually by the time I say like, no, I cut my teeth on original NES, then people shut up and leave me alone. I will say, I'm always intrigued. Like, so I started playing games by playing RPGs, and for the longest time, any first-person shooter used to make me sick. And like looking back, I think because I still have it where like certain frame rates and certain field of view FPS games really like I'm instantly nauseous. But like I never got to play Perfect Dark back in the day. I don't know if you guys played Perfect Dark and GoldenEye and all those games. I couldn't play them. I couldn't even watch other people play them. I would have to lie down. I was so sick. And I think that's part of why now, like, I can play the better games because they have better frame rates and they're not so nauseating with the camera and, like, juddery movement and stuff. But I'm still just not an FPS person. It's, like, because I didn't play them back when I was becoming a gamer. I just don't get it. But then there are other games I'll play, like, I don't know, okay, I'm gonna put this out there. When I was getting ready to review Evolve, I really liked shooting everything in that. But that wasn't a first-person shooter, was it? That was like third person. Who was a first person? I don't even remember. Who played Evolve anyway? Anyway. But like, I learned to get over all my FPS stuff eventually, but I just don't seek out those games. Like, people say like, oh, the new Call of Duty single-player campaign is amazing, and I'm like, I'm sure it is, enjoy! I'll never yuck on other people's yum. Like, I won't be like, man, it's shit, you shouldn't play it, it's crap. I'll make fun of them, but I won't actually say your game is crap. But I think because I didn't play it originally, I just haven't played them now. And so, it's one of those things where I'm still just an RPG person. I think that also influences the consoles I'm interested in. Like whoever has the best exclusives on a given console in terms of RPGs, I think that's gonna get my time. Um, I suppose that's also true. Like, RPGs take a ton of time. Like I said in the beginning, like I used to ask for games that had a minimum of 100 hours that I could sink into them. I don't get that kind of gameplay time. I mean, I do. I make that time because I have to and I want to. But I do really prefer games that I can kind of pick up, play for 20 minutes, and then drop. Especially because I never know when Harley's going to wake up. So that's something that is useful to be able to have a game that you can pick up and play, and then put down. That said, I just feel so much more invested emotionally in an RPG. Like, if I care about the story, if I care about the characters, then I want to keep playing. And it's actually kind of amusing to me now. Like, since having a kid, I finally have gotten my first platinum trophies. Whereas previously I was like, nah, nobody got time for that. Now I'm like, I don't have time to play, but I'll play this one game that I have made time for to completion, and then I'll talk about how I don't have time to play games. So it's just weird. So anyway, that's pretty much my story. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but yeah, that's kind of been my arc, was like playing all those old school games, loving them, getting into RPGs, having loads of fun, and then just carrying on doing it, and being interested in history and mythology and music and storytelling and character development and all, and map making. And I attribute gaming to the fact that I have a really good sense of direction. I never get lost. Knock on wood. Now I'm gonna get lost all the time because I've said that on live stream. But I just don't get lost. Like I'm like a bloodhound or something. I can always remember my way back, and I'm like, oh, we turned in right, so we'll have to go left. And like I have like that internal compass thing down, and I think a big part of that is from gaming. And it's something I want to pass on to Harley, and I also just don't know if that's still a skill that would be built with modern games. Like, do I have to put her back on those old games? Like, if she plays new Assassin's Creed type games when she's old enough, obviously, because, murder shouldn't be encouraged for small children. Is she still going to learn map making and sense of direction, or is it like, oh, open your mini map, oh, there I am? Or is that fine because we're all going to have Google Glass or whatever crap anyway, and we won't need to have a sense of direction because it'll all be, we'll actually have our own mini maps in the form of smartphones. I don't know. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in. Yes, The Last of Us was phenomenal. I don't know, like, I really liked The Witcher, but I also read the books. So I already cared about the characters so much that then I wanted to see the way the game would portray them. And they really did a good job of making your choices matter. The same with Mass Effect. To a certain extent, Dragon Age. Like, I had this romance in Dragon Age Inquisition, that was I was a female dwarf, and I got romanced, or I romanced Iron Bull, and it was actually like this whole BDSM relationship, which I was not expecting, and it was so amazing to experience this, like, I don't know, like falling in love with Iron Bull. And like I actually really, really grew to care about his character. And then when I played a different playthrough with a different character, I didn't care about him. It was so weird to be like the same character, depending on your conversation choices, depending on your playstyle, can really suck you in and make you care. Horizon Zero Dawn, oh for sure. I platinumed that. Blow my own horn. I platinumed that just because I cared so much. Like, I wanted to do every single side quest. I wanted to explore every nook and cranny of that world. Because I cared so much, and I wanted to know what happened, and I wanted to understand everything and read all of the things and find all of the collectibles because they had other lore embedded in them. So Horizon Zero Dawn was really, really good for that. Anything from BioWare, to be honest. Like, I still need to play Mass Effect Andromeda, but from everything I've heard, like, I think it's good I've waited. I think that a lot of people had burnout by the time they played it because there were so many amazing games released in succession. But everyone is raving about that now, like, after the fact. So I still need to get into that and play that. I think it also, even multiplayer games can do it for you. Like, I'm playing Alienation now, and it's fine. Like, it's not, mind-blowing storytelling or anything. It's really, really not. It's basically like get the best pants kind of game. You know, you run around, get loot, then you run around some more and get better loot, so you can kill more things and get better loot. But like it's just really fun to run around with people and like do that whole co-op shooter vibe. You know, you kind of, instead of getting invested in the story or the story arc or the character development in that sense, you get invested in like your character that you're creating and your playstyle and like getting a really, really good gun. Which sounds really, really shallow and superficial after a game like Horizon Zero Dawn. But it's really, really like it's not gonna. I mean, maybe I'll get addicted to it just now, but like it's not blowing my mind. But it's really, really fun, especially after a crappy day, to come home and kill everything, and that works for me. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Also, it was free on PSN, so PS Plus, so I didn't have to buy a game. Yes, Craig, you do. You need to play Mass Effect, you need to play Final Fantasy, Nier. I haven't played Neo yet, or Persona 5. Witcher 3 is really good. I actually need to get the DLC for that. I finished the game, but apparently the DLC is amazing, and everyone is like, have you played the DLC yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't even bought it yet. So I need to do that at some point. My pile of shame is bad. Also, I blame Stardew Valley for that, because I lost many, many hours to that. But it's hard for me to play PC games at the moment, I must say, because, like, I face this way. Well, you can see, I face this way, and this is my computer. And then Harley is usually there, which used to be fine when she was a small baby, and I could put her down, and then she was still there when I looked up. Now, I put her down, and if it goes quiet, it means that she's into something she shouldn't be, or she's gone. And then I have to, like, wander around the house trying to find her, and then she ends up, like, in the kitchen covered in Cheerios or something. I don't know. It's really not, yes, I played Witcher 3. I just haven't played the DLC yet. So yeah, so PC gaming is kind of out at the moment. I just can't do that, so I am playing more on console. And on my phone, actually, like I'm playing some random phone games as well. I think I need to get a Nintendo Switch so I can play like on the couch and then in the car and then on the TV. But that's a down the road thing for now. So anyway, I am gonna try and finish my hot chocolate and see if any of you have any more questions. Thank you all so much for tuning in and watching me go live and chatting to me about gaming. It's something I'm still so passionate about, and I mean the fact that something that I started doing when I was probably 5, is still something I'm so passionate about just proves the power of gaming and proves why it matters and why it's fun and important and all of that. So lots and lots of love to all of you for watching and for caring and for joining into my conversation. And just remember, so I go live on Born Geek now twice a week. So every Sunday and Wednesday evening I'm live. I'll be doing different topics. Sometimes it's like parenty stuff, sometimes it's gamer geeky stuff. So please like and subscribe and do all those things so that you can watch me on a more regular basis. Hi Quentin. Ooh, a pro gamer. Very cool. I'm not a pro gamer. Well, I'm a professional games journalist, if that counts. That makes me a pro. I have a pro in my title, so it counts. Maybe. But thank you all so much for watching, and please do the whole like, subscribe thing so that you can catch me next time I'm live. And I will chat to you all soon. Hope you have a nice night. Bye.